that's what I would call alignment. And that's what I help clients achieve. So actually, before we started this recording, somebody had DM'd me was saying like, I've been putting myself out there. I've been offering my services. No one's completing my courses. And this like one after the other, like dominoes of misalignment. Like when you're not in alignment, this is what it is. And like, remember what was his name? Jeff Foxworthy, when he was like, you may be a redneck. This was like, you may be out of alignment. I should do a stand-up bit on this. Next up, open mic.
Welcome to the Online Genius Podcast, where host and renegade thinking beer brewing lawyer turned online entrepreneur Bobby Klink proves that building and protecting your online genius doesn't have to be rocket science. Bobby and his expert guests break down online marketing and the legal stuff so you can stop sweating the small stuff and get back to building your amazing business. Now, here's your host, Bobby Klink.
Hey there, welcome to episode 85 of the Online Genius Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Klink, and I'm really excited for today's show. Now, today's show is kind of a bit different, and it's a show that I never, ever in a million years would have recorded a year ago, and probably not even 6 months ago. Because in this episode, I am talking about woo-woo concepts that I never thought I would believe in. I'm just being honest here. The reality is, I've said this a few different times, I'm a recovering blockhead. I used to not believe in the mindset work or the woo or any of that stuff. That's just who I was. But over the last 6 months, I've recognized how important this stuff is in my business, in my life, etc. In fact, if you listen to last week's episode 84, I talked about that was one of the things that kind of I got a reminder of over the last 6 months about how important the mindset work actually is in our business. And in this episode, we're kind of talking about how to get into alignment and flow and trust your gut in your business and understand kind of where your kind of natural self is pointing you. And I'm still a recovering blockhead, so I really am not a person who's qualified to really talk you through this and guide you through this. So I brought my friend Emily Ahrens on the show to do this. Now, Emily is an intuitive healer and a psychic business coach. She's best known as a spiritual guide for getting into alignment in your business. She supports her clients on their healing journey by clearing and releasing blocks so they can step fully into their power as entrepreneurs. Her body of work includes the Aligned and Unstoppable podcast, Mastery and Ascension, a meditation membership for entrepreneurs, and the year-long Phoenix mentorship. When she's not doing transformational healing work, you can find her barefoot in her backyard organic farm with her husband, 2 boys, 2 dogs, 80 chickens, and 15 ducks. Now, I want you to trust me here. If you're someone who heard that and maybe you heard psychic and clearing blocks and things like that, and that makes you say, ooh, this isn't for me, I would have said the same thing. But this is not an episode where we're going to be talking about those kinds of things at a level that I think will make you say that. When I was talking to Emily in the interview, we talked about a lot of the things that have been happening in my business over the last 6 months. I mean, she talked about how I am in the ultimate state of flow right now. And she talks about the fact that I launch things and people buy. And I'm doing things that are in alignment with what I want to do, and I'm having great success. And so we kind of frame the discussion around that. She talks through my things, and she talks about the kinds of things we need to do as entrepreneurs to let ourselves really understand our gut and trust our gut and follow our intuition. And I talk about it in the interview. You don't hear me because I tend to mute myself when I'm not talking during an interview, just in case my dogs bark, my daughter makes noise, or for some reason a loud truck goes by. But I was laughing out loud, literally almost falling on the floor a lot of the times during this interview, because Emily would talk about something. She would talk about how, as entrepreneurs, we need to do X, something, whatever it was, and that's really the key to things. And I would literally be laughing because over the last 6 months or 3 months, or really 2 or 3 months, those were the kinds of things that I started doing that really I can now attribute success to. And so one of the small things that you'll hear me talk about with Emily is she talks about how you need to find and give yourself space. And by that, she means some quiet time where you're not working, where you're not doing those things. And that's important to be able to trust your gut and actually, tune into yourself. Well, I was laughing about that because literally that was one of the things that I said I was going to do after the first mastermind retreat I had with Emily. She's one of the James Wedmore Inner Circle masterminders with me. And after our February retreat, I committed to myself that I was going to not work on weekends. Now, I've made exceptions to that, but I kind of committed. And after I did, that small thing started to give me some space to actually trust my gut and to follow my intuition and to let me actually hear it because I wasn't too busy constantly working. So that's one example of the kind of thing we talk about during the interview. It is an action-packed interview. Emily gives some great advice. So, tune in, give it a listen. And if you follow the advice that Emily has, it's really going to help you to get into alignment and get into a state of flow where you're naturally working the way you should be working. And that is going to help you succeed in your business. So before we dive in, though, this episode, as always, is brought to you by the Online Genius podcast community on Facebook. I say it every time, and I'm going to keep saying it. Look, I don't want to just talk at you. I want to engage with you. And I can't do that on this podcast because you're not here with me and when I'm recording it or when I'm doing interviews. But what you can do is where we can engage is in the Facebook group. That's where we can have conversations, where we can discuss what's going on, where, we can talk about this week's episode, where we can talk about just about anything you want. So I'd love for you to join me. It's absolutely free. And you can join me over at youronlinegenius.com/community. Again, youronlinegenius.com/community. Just answer the questions and we'll let you in. So I hope you'll join me over there. But without further ado, here is my interview with Emily Ahrens. Welcome to the show, Emily. I'm so excited you're here.
Thank you for having me, Bobby. It's so excited to be here.
Now, we're going to be talking about some interesting things about getting in alignment and trusting your gut in business. But before I do that, I always like to ask my guests something fun or something about them personally. And you told me that you're a food snob.
Totally.
But not in the sense that most people think. I think most people wouldn't think you're a food snob. Explain what you mean when you say you're a food snob.
So first of all, my husband and I have the worst time going out to dinner because we typically don't like the food. We own our home is on a smallish 3-acre property, and we have a backyard organic farm. So we grow produce, we have chickens and ducks, we have eggs. And so we've even raised our own meat, not here. Well, actually we have raised turkeys here. We've raised our own food. And so the quality of food that we consume is a pretty high standard. So it's organic, it's local, it's fresh. And typically the food that we get at restaurants isn't that way. So, we cook a lot. We kind of feel like no matter, even if you go to those upscale restaurants, it's still not always locally sourced or organic or fresh. And, that's kind of what makes us the food snobs.
Yeah. So when you say food snob, most people are thinking you want to go to snooty restaurants. You're saying, no, I don't go to restaurants because I don't believe any of them have quality food, which that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, we've tried, there's like a handful of local restaurants. I'm north of Boston. So there's this one great place that we found near us in Exeter, New Hampshire, that does locally source their food. And it's amazing, even though it's a little bit on the snooty-ish side, but it's still kind of down to earth as well. But yeah, even the high end places, they still don't source organic meats or fishes, or they'll buy I'll ask if the salmon is farm raised, and it is. So it's aww. So yeah, it's a funny little thing.
Yeah. I mean, one of my good friends from high school is now ironically, we're both from South Texas, but he's also in Washington, D.C., and he's a chef at a restaurant here. And I mean, it's quality food, but I understand it's not quality food by your definition. So I definitely get that if that's your concern. So that's the interesting. You have to slum it when you're at the masterminds with me, but I'm glad you can put up with it for a little bit.
I know. Well, it's usually, they usually have pretty decent stuff. And for me, like, I get lit up when I go to a farmer's market. I'm like, oh yeah, who's got the local honey? I'm like, yeah.
Well, so my funny thing is, like, we have things here in DC that they call them farmers markets, but I go and I'm like, you have the exact same produce every single week and it looks perfect. I'm like, this can't possibly be a real farmer's market. I don't know what you're buying, but this is not actually a farmer's market.
I know, it's kind of weird. I am totally like a ugly produce person. I like the ugly produce. I'm fine with that.
I saw an ad for that box. Have you seen the boxes you can get where basically you get produce a lot cheaper because people don't want ugly produce? Yes,
it's so smart. We waste so much food. Don't get me started, Bobby. We waste so much food in this country specifically. And it's the ugly produce or things that have like a little spot on them and people won't necessarily buy them. So a lot of markets will just throw them out. And with so much poverty and like starvation and like, it's crazy that we can't feed our people. So,
yep. But we should stop talking about this.
Okay.
I feel like you were about to get up on a soapbox, which there's a good reason for it, but
kick it out from underneath me. Hurry.
But that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about, being in alignment in your business and trusting your gut. Yeah. And I've introduced you in the intro before this interview, but I probably did a very poor job of explaining what you do. I've gone through the process that we did at our first retreat, so I have a sense, but I can't really put it into words. So why don't you explain what you do? How do you help entrepreneurs?
I help them by releasing all of the blocks that are in front of them so that they can get in full alignment and receive exactly what they desire quicker.
Okay.
So what that means, and then people are like, sounds like a magic pill. Yeah, kind of. I mean, if you want to call it that. So what I do, so I've been a trained energy healer for just about 20 years. And in doing energy healing, I can address every part of your system, your thought, your mindset, your beliefs, your family stories, all the stuff that you brought through childhood, all kinds of things that have been kind of lingering around you and within you. And it's sort of made you the person who you are today. So in doing all this deep energy healing, what I've noticed over the couple of decades is that I attract entrepreneurs. And the reason why is because I am so great at helping to pinpoint blocks, help entrepreneurs know what their next steps are, get clarity, and really being able to step into alignment to be able to trust their gut and all that good stuff. So the energy work, what I do, it's almost like if there was like a dam, there's something in the way. You pulling out the dam, which is the energy, releasing the energy block, and then the water can flow again. And it can happen really, really quickly. And also I have, clients who I work with long-term, and their results are amazing. Just to see these immediate shifts and how it shows up in their business is that suddenly they are super attractive to all their soulmate clients. That's what I call their, your ideal clients. They start creating offers or create opportunities that start selling out really quickly. Their business starts to feel easy again. They start to have launches that it's like, wait a minute, I don't even need to run ads. And I'm like crushing it. And I kind of want to give you a shout out right here because, we've only known each other for, a few months, but what I've seen you do is get into full alignment, and you have created so much ease and flow in your business that it's almost comical where you're like, well, I just did a non-launch launch, if that's what you want to call it, right?
Yeah. And again, I mean, it's alignment's a lot of things, but yeah. And, I've shared this with people who listen, but yeah, I just did a non-launch launch where I sent a series of emails over 3 days and made something just around $60,000. And it was a legal product, not something people want, but I said, hey, here's what I got. Do you want it? And I had a bunch of people who said, not just yes, but emailed back that, I had literally had people telling me they had been waiting for me to open the doors. They had decided not to buy legal templates from someone else because they wanted to wait and buy them from me. That's all I had to do. And
wow.
it was a push from our mutual mentor, James Wedmore, who basically said I was making this too complicated. I think it's funny because it really dovetails with what you're talking about, which is I was overthinking things.
Yeah.
And how does that relate to what you find with entrepreneurs?
Well, we can all get into that overthinking, over processing, over strategizing. It's so easy because, if you've taken a course or 2 or 20, you've got all these great strategies. You've got all these experts who are like, look, do this 5-step process and you'll create X amount of dollars in your business. And you try to replicate it without getting the same exact results. And chances are it's because it worked for them and it's not in alignment for you. And you don't know that because you're not trusting your own instincts to say what feels right and what feels easy and light versus what feels so hard. And it's really hard to make the distinction of what feels heavy or light, because we're so programmed into thinking you have to work hard to make money. Yeah. And so when things come easily, it's like, well, when's the other shoe going to drop? It's like something's wrong here. And so we can easily pull ourselves out of that ease and alignment to go back into hustle and pushing and overcomplicating and overthinking. So I actually want to ask you, so when you said you decided to put that offer out there, why did you decide to open the doors? Did you get some sort of client telling you they wanted it? Did you get like an idea? What was your first step in deciding to put it out there?
Well, so I mean, I had put the offer out there two times before and had gotten decent results. The first time I had done just an email series to my email list, and this was, I guess, October of last year. I think I closed the door on Halloween, and it did fine, but I was not yet in full alignment, I guess you would say, and I hadn't yet kind of gotten it through to myself and to the core, but I did that. Then I launched it in January, and I planned to launch it again in April. The problem was I had complicating factors, and my plan was to launch it again with some kind of launch. I didn't know what it was going to be. James was pushing me, said I didn't need to do a webinar launch. He didn't think, but I was still going to try to figure out some kind of event launch. I didn't know what that meant. And I was probably going to do a webinar, I thought, but I was going to do it maybe not about the legal stuff and then kind of spin it into the legal stuff at the end. But so that was my thinking. But then life got in the way. My other business, my law firm business, got busy. Ironically, the reason I thought I was going to be busy kind of got stretched out. So I could have done the full launch, but I didn't think I could. I was like, there's no way I'm going to have time in March and April to do a full launch. And I was talking with some of our other mastermind friends who are here local in the DC area about what to do when it just became clear to me I couldn't. And I resisted making a change, I think, for 3 or 4 weeks when I should have known I wasn't going to be able to do this launch. But so I talked to my friend, to our other friends, and basically I had people on a wait list already who had raised their hand, said they wanted to buy this stuff. And the people who had been on a wait list, the prior launch had converted like crazy because obviously they said, hey, I want this stuff. And so I just figured, hey, I'll email them with, I think I had decided 3 days, 2 emails a day. And then I would send a couple of emails just to my whole list. And so I decided, because it was like, hey, that's what I can do right now. Mm-hmm. That's what I know I can commit to. It's not going to be a problem. I had the emails largely written. So I said that was what was available to me. And so I just committed to doing that. So that's the story of why it happened.
Okay. So you basically like, look, this is easy, right? And what's the risk? No risk really, right? Like few emails, a little bit of time.
Right. I mean, yeah, because I knew there wasn't going to be an ad spend. There wasn't going to be any of that stuff. I was just going to basically tell people, hey, and so I started seeding with emails beforehand and on my Facebook Lives talking about, hey, I'm not going to do a full launch the second quarter. I'm not going to do the full thing. And so I was telling people in advance, I wasn't even sure if I was going to do it beyond my wait list. And so I was telling people, get on the wait list. That way, if you want it, get on that. That way you're sure to get the information. And so I started seeding it that way. But then, it was just, I was like, okay, send some emails. And that's all I had to do. And basically tell people, here it is. And again, James was pushing me at our first, basically saying, your offer's pretty good. Just say, here's what I got. Do you want it? He kept saying people would buy, and I kept resisting.
Right.
And I don't know. I mean, I don't know where the resistance came from, but I think it was partly me thinking, no, it's got to be complicated.
Right.
I've got to do, I've learned all this stuff about webinars. I got to do a webinar. And so it was a lot of that, I think, was part of what was going on for me.
Yeah. And so we can get so tangled in all the processes. We can get tangled in the steps and like what other people have done or what we think we should be doing. And it was almost like life intervened where you may have silently been praying for a little bit less of a time consuming launch. You may have been silently praying for easy. You may have been silently asking for, just make it work. Like there's something underneath it all that's why it started to kind of steamroll. And this is how our intuition starts to speak to us. So we get this gut instinct, right? You have our friends to lean on, and then you meet up with them. You're like, look, this isn't going to be a possibility. What else is open? And there's been plenty of times where you talk to a friend, they give you ideas that are great, and you're like, nah, don't really like it. But there was something that showed up for you that said, yeah, this is the one idea that feels really good, and I'm just going to roll with it. We'll see what happens. And you said to yourself, like, I thought I wanted to do a webinar, and James is saying you're overcomplicating it. So that kind of aligns again, which is like, okay, this is simple. So let's just roll it out. Let's see what happens. And so frequently people will confuse their intuition and these intuitive nudges and these little, what I call like little breadcrumbs that you get throughout your day, as almost like they'll confuse them. Like, I don't know if that's right. And they start to worry and not trust it. And again, overthinking it. But when you can just simply pick up a breadcrumb and just see it for what it is, which is the breadcrumb you got was, from the group, which was, what if you just sent out some emails to your list, right? Like that was your breadcrumb. And you can choose to take action or not take action. You could still have chosen to do a webinar, but you're getting these little intuitive nudges. And so you have a choice whether to say yes or whether to say no. And you decided to say yes. So in the work that I do, what I call that is your intuition. So the way that you can differentiate between, what your thoughts are and your intuition. So typically we have these thoughts that are, hey, do a webinar. So thanks for the examples, Bobby. This is perfect. Hey, you should do a webinar, or you know what, you already launched it a couple times this way. Let's do it again. And so you have these thoughts, and underneath these thoughts, you have sort of like almost like a cheerleader that's like, you've got this. This can be easier. It can be fun. You don't have to worry. You don't have to stress. And sometimes that voice gets a little bit muted. So then you have these external parts of you, for James showed up and he's reminding you, yeah, it can be easy. You can stop overcomplicating it. So you're getting these breadcrumbs, you're getting these intuitive nudges. And the next thing you know, you're kind of walking along this path of making it really an easy launch and putting all the pieces together. And what happens is if you're on that, you're starting to write your emails or something, and then all of a sudden you start doubting yourself. Like, no, this isn't going to work. No one's going to respond to these emails. What if my copy isn't good, or, people just, sure, they're on the wait list, but they didn't really mean to sign up for it. Like, you start to doubt yourself. That's all what I call ego. So our ego is the one that is in charge of overthinking. Our ego is the one that tells us that we're not good enough, we're not smart enough, we're too fat, someone else is doing it. Who are you? What makes you the expert? That's all ego. So that's how you can you don't have to listen to that voice. Those are just thoughts. It doesn't mean that there's any truth to them. Those are just the thoughts that kind of keep you where you are, keep you small and safe. Your ego is in charge of keeping things as status quo. So if you think of your ego as trying to keep things at status quo, it's not going to be really into growth. And so sometimes our ego will go kicking and screaming, and it's going to start pulling your hair as you're walking down your path of ease, and it's going to start yelling at you. So did you get this is just maybe a little personal, but did you get any resistance to making it so easy? Anything come up for you?
I can't think of anything that did at the time, partly because the universe had told me that I didn't have a choice. Although I say that, I think in some ways, when it looked like maybe the case was going to, get moved, and it in fact did, my law firm work, I think maybe some of me was saying, well, if that happened, should I change it? But I decided, no, I'm going to follow this. But Emily, I got to tell you, listeners are going to think we talked in advance about this, and we didn't.
Nope.
But something you just said, it's so hilarious. And the other thing, listener, you need to understand this. We were supposed to do this interview a week ago, and then I had something come up, and so we had to delay it a week. And in the interim, I decided, literally in that week, committed myself to doing something new, to creating a membership, which is about the business and marketing side, because people have been asking me a lot about that, about how I build my business, how I'm doing those things. And so I decided to create a membership, and not just that, but to do a founder's launch. I don't have a membership created yet. I have a vision for it. I know what I intend it to be. And I decided to do a founder's launch. And you said, Emily, that your ego is going to say, before you send those emails, no one's going to respond to this. I can tell you, I had those thoughts Monday morning, 2 days ago, as I was about to send that email, because I had, it was a new venture for me. It was stepping out from what I've been doing. And I had that thought, but luckily, I guess because I've learned a thing or two, I kicked that to the curb and I said, to hell with it, hit the send button.
Yes.
And something around, I think I launched it first to people who had already bought my signature template library, the legal stuff, and 17% bought. On 2 days, 3 emails.
Right.
So, and I mean, literally, I got emails from people that said, I'm not exactly sure what this is, but if you're offering it, I'm buying.
Exactly.
And so I said, okay, universe, I get it. I get it.
Yeah. And so that's what I would call alignment. And that's what I help clients achieve. So actually, before we started this recording, somebody had DM'd me, was saying like, I've been putting myself out there. I've been offering my services. No one's completing my courses. And this, like, one after the other, like dominoes of misalignment. Like when you're not in alignment, this is what it is. And like, remember, what was his name? Jeff Foxworthy, when he was like, you may be a redneck. This was like, you may be out of alignment. I should do a stand-up bit on this. Next up, open mic. But that's exactly it, is that, Bobby, you are in full alignment. And maybe, I don't know if you do like New Year's resolutions or affirmations or like, here's my word of the year. But I would almost guess that there was some sort of thinking or sort of, I don't know, I would say like intention setting for you that you wanted this year to be easy or to have more flow to it, because literally that's what you're doing. And everything has been ease and then more ease and then more ease. And so basically, I'm just going to break it down again. So what Bobby was saying is that it's not that there's no resistance. There's resistance, because your ego is always going to try to stop you and to keep you from, expanding and from playing full out, because that's you serving at your highest level. That's you serving at your highest level. So your ego is like, no. If you're serving your highest level, then I can't be in the driver's seat. You better stop doing that. So it will try to stop you. And for most people, our ego is always in the driver's seat. So it's harder to trust in those intuitive nudges. It's harder for us to be like, F it, I'm going to do it anyway, even though like maybe it doesn't make any sense and I feel like no one's going to buy, like, no, I'll just do it anyway. And so it takes that internal work to start learning how to listen to the messages and how to respond and accordingly. So I love that. And so here's the other thing. You did a second non-launch launch.
Yep. That
was easy. And people kept saying yes.
Yep.
And it's like, there's literally, you said yourself, like, there's nothing there. It's just an idea still. Like, it's coming together, but there's nothing really there for even people to get, right?
Yep. I mean, these people were buying basically knowing that, they're not going to get access to anything for over a month. And and literally, I couldn't even, describe exactly what it was. And the funny thing is, in going back and forth with people on email, it actually refined in my mind what it was that this membership's going to be that I didn't have before. Or I basically, they encapsulated it in a word that I hadn't thought about before. And so it was amazing. And, it's There's other things though that I think, so part of the alignment is making it easy, but the other part of the alignment is with the products and what I'm offering. Because I found that, I mean, there's a wonderful story that proves that point. Last year last February, I guess, I signed up for 2 programs. One was B School with Marie Forleo, which when I followed that route, I started offering affordable options to people. Separately, I took a program that cost a lot more, that I spent a lot more on Facebook ads and other things for, that it was supposed to be about creating a high ticket offer that was ultimately a $13,000 to $15,000 loss for me because I sold nothing. I think it was because I was not in alignment with that offer. That's not what I wanted to do. So, yeah.
So I think maybe people are scratching their heads saying like, well, how do I get into alignment if I've been running my business, pushing myself to using other people's strategies, other people's advice? Like, I don't even know what my intuition or my gut is even saying. How do I even start to do that? So my first piece of advice would be just to be quiet. I know that's the opposite of what entrepreneurs want to do. We feel like if we take our foot off the pedal, everything's going to cease. We're going to die. Our business will crumble. But truthfully, the opposite is more true. When we can take pause, and I'm not saying like take a week vacation in Bali. I'm saying give yourself some quiet time, even if it's 1 minute. So I always like to start with just 1 minute of breathing every single day. And that's how I started my meditation practice, to be totally honest, is I started tracking on a little app called Streaks, and I would check off if I did a 1 minute meditation every day. And that literally is just 1 minute of deeply breathing in and out. And that is all. And I would count it. And everyone has a minute. Every single person has 1 minute. So you can't make an excuse that you don't have time. But what happens is that if you are giving yourself the space to breathe, what you're doing is you're unplugging from your brain. That's like the chatter. It's like the little monkey with the cymbals in its hand, like clink, 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 like it's doing. When you unplug from that, it allows you to have that space, that deep exhale. And that pause is when your higher self starts to show up. Your higher self starts to give you those ideas. That's why you get those ideas in the shower, people. Okay. Oh. And I know, like, one of my good friends has a whiteboard in her shower. I don't even know how that works, but she has one. She's like, that's where I get all my best ideas. But that's it. It's like when you can unplug from, it's like that sympathetic nervous system. It's like, bum, 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 bum. It's always clapping those stupid chimes. It's like, it gives you a chance to unplug from that so you can connect to your higher self. And your higher self is plugged right into the universe, right into source, right into God. And it's allowing you to get that like divine download, like that Bobby got. And yeah, Bobby doesn't speak in the weird language that I do, but that's what happened, is that he got a divine download that said, look, there's some people out there who need your help. And here's what they're praying for from you. And it shows up as an email. And then it shows up internally to him as like, ooh, I like how that feels. And for him, if he likes how it feels, and then all of a sudden his amazing entrepreneurial brain starts putting all the little pieces together, is like, wait, I could do this. And it won't take too much time. And maybe it's scalable, and maybe other people would want it. And next thing you know, he's off, right? So it's like that seed's been planted and it's just been fertilized a little bit. And we can stop ourselves from having the pause, from having that sense, from getting that breadcrumb. So give yourself that moment. Just give yourself the chance to even receive it. So I like to say that praying is asking and meditation is listening. And so, like I said to you earlier, it's like, I'm sure there's part of you that's been praying for ease to make this year a little bit easier, and you're getting it in droves. So if you can,
you have me like laughing over here,
right?
Because okay, I got to talk about 3 things.
Okay, 3 things only. Go.
Well, three things that relate to what you said. Number 1, my words for the year. So my words weren't simplify, but they all related to make it easier for me. It would systematize, delegate, and I've forgotten what the other one was. But they were all basically about that concept of stop running myself ragged. So, okay, so yes, that's an alignment. But second, your whole, that's why you have thoughts in the shower. I haven't told my pastor this, but I have all my best business ideas while I'm sitting in church. Yeah. And I feel kind of bad about it because I like pull out my phone, pull out the Apple Notes app and start typing because I'm like, I don't want to lose this because I'm having that thought.
Yes.
But wait, here is the one that's going to blow your mind. And listeners, I swear we didn't talk about this. I had no idea where we were going. So one of the big things, my commitments after our retreat, which was in the first week of February. So, kind of in the month before I decided to make this change on the launch, was that I was going to stop working on weekends. So I gave myself a chance to breathe.
Yes. Oh my God. That's right.
Yes. And so before I was so busy, the monkey with the clinking cymbals, that my brain never had a chance to listen to these things. Oh. So I just, like I said, when you said that, I was on mute and I almost fell out of my chair because I was like, holy poop emoji. Is she really saying this? And seeing the alignment there.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And our friend Zach, he just went on vacation. Yep. He was gone in Australia for like 3 weeks and he came back and he's never been more on fire. Yep. And he's like, people have been coming out of nowhere wanting to work with me and booking like high-end packages and like nothing has felt easier in years. So it's like, we're so afraid. Now I have chills because I call it truth chills. So it's exactly, it's like you gave yourself permission to pause. And for you, I know it was like, oh my God, taking 2 days off, like that's craziness. Yep. But you're exactly right. You gave yourself that space and look at the magic that's been created since you've had that space.
Yep. it's funny. I have to say, it's better to be lucky than good in a lot of things because I fell into this. I can't claim to be a genius. Again, I put myself around smart people like you and James who give me the nudges, but I didn't, systematically say, okay, I'm going to take time off so that I can get busy. No, I just said, I'm going to do it. And here is the positive upside from it.
Totally. So now you can say, well, all right, so if I just took 2 days off, what would be possible if I went on vacation? And actually, that was coming up for me today because I'm like, I actually could use a vacation right now. I'm ready. Like, you don't have to be burnt the F out before you're allowed to go on vacation, for the record. But something that you might not know about me is that every time after we do an inner circle retreat, I block the following week off. So I'm not working on purpose because the time that we're away, we're not like chilling out by the pool, even though we do sometimes, but
we're not. No, we're not.
We're not.
Your brain is working more, during those mastermind retreats than most other times, I think.
Beyond. Cause like us, we're on the East Coast, so we go West Coast. So we're still on East Coast time. So we're up before dawn and then we're going to bed late, but through the entire day, we're thinking, we're strategizing, we're giving feedback, we're getting feedback, we're crying, we're laughing. It's like talking so much. Like I work from home, so I don't talk to that many people, but it's a lot of energy to expend. Yeah. So what happens is that when you're in a space where you're doing so much work, when you come back and you try to come back into your real like day-to-day life, the integration process it can be really tough. And coming back from that, it's like you can't just jump right back into it. Your system hasn't integrated fully. So I like to give myself that space to breathe and to integrate the work that just happened. And kind of like, a gold mine, are you sifting through the pieces? So there's so many great gems that come through that. And so what I like to do is feel into like, what's mine to do? Even though it's a great killer strategy that worked for 9,000 people, like, is it right for me is what's more important. And so it gives me a chance to kind of feel into that instead of just going like all out on like a strategy before I feel into it. It just gives me that time to let it settle. And I don't take any action until I've let things settle, unless I'm like so compelled to do something like crazy immediately fast. But it's in the pause, it's in that time off. But now you can look at it like, all right, so if I'm actually more profitable taking 2 days off a week. And like, it's been easier. What would a vacation look like? I know, and I remember you had said something about, I don't know if it's okay to say, but about taking a vacation with your wife and taking her away.
Yep. No, that was, and that was that was your session, right? You were the one who did that the first day. I can't remember.
I think it was. I'm like, was it I can't remember if it was or not.
You were the one who had us like set our intentions and all that.
Yes.
And yes, I mean, listeners, what I said. So basically the idea was, this was in February, and the idea was, what would success look like to you when we walk into our November retreat? That was kind of the question that was posed. And a lot of people, and a lot of people were talking about like goals of metrics. And I think Emily, yours was about your podcast, I think, if I remember.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It was podcast downloads. Yep.
Yeah. And so a lot of people were looking at that. And so I kind of joked when it was my turn. I said, I think I did this wrong. But I said, to me, I will know I've had a successful year if I've taken my wife on a week-long vacation to Italy. And I don't know if I said at the time, but I basically added to it later, and didn't look at my computer while I was away.
Whoa.
And, my notion was I would only do that. I'd only be willing to do that if, number one, I was having an abundant year, because I wasn't, I wouldn't feel afraid of the money and the cost, but also it would require me to stop being a workaholic, which I kind of identified as my problem. So yeah, that was my goal, and still is my goal.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and so now you're getting all this positive reinforcement for you not working, which is great.
Well, but the funny thing, you talking about that pause, and it didn't even hit me until you said this. But so again, we went, we at this retreat, and listeners, if you've never done a mastermind retreat or mastermind, there will be parts of it that are kind of tactical and strategic about here are things that are working and not. And then there's other parts that aren't, that just have nothing to do with that. At least if you're in a good mastermind, I think.
Right.
And I look back at it, I'm pretty sure I haven't implemented any of the tactical strategic stuff yet. But what I have done since our last retreat is do the non-tactical, non-strategic stuff of making it easy.
Yeah. The mindset, the inner work.
Yeah, so it is an interesting point that, that realistically, that stuff is more important, or at least as important as the strategic and tactical stuff.
I agree. It is. I would say it's not either or, it's both and. Yeah. Because, and again, that's where my work shows up, is because I'm doing the deeper, the energetic, the mindset work, but at the same exact time, I also channel in the business strategy that's right for my clients. So right. I'll give you a silly example. I have a client who we did a one-on-one session, and she was working on a funnel. Okay. This is a real client. This is a real funnel. She's a dietitian. She's a business mentor and a coach, and she trains people how to do her type of work. And her funnel was performing okay. It wasn't broken. It was actually performing okay. And what we did actually energetically is we went through step by step, from the opt-in to the thank you to the email sequence to the offers, blah, 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 to see where the breakdown was that was not resonating with her ideal client. And from an energetic level, we want to feel into like what feels heavy, what feels light, what needs to change, what do we need to do, down to the Facebook ad targeting. And what showed up was, it was so funny because I was like, I take notes during my sessions, and I wrote down this woman. I was like, I don't know her name. I can see her face perfectly. She's adorable. She's got curly hair. She's got glasses. She's like a chef. She's got like some show on TV, on like daytime television. And my client was like, Carla? I'm like, Carla, that's who it is. Like, target Carla. I'm like, can you target Carla? And so she looked it up right after our session, and she goes, guess what? I can target Carla. And her ad spend went down significantly. Like, she was only, getting like a couple bucks per lead, but it went down to like 47 cents a lead. It was crazy. I'm like,
I'm happy at a couple bucks a lead.
I know. I was like, well, you're like, again, it's like her thing, her funnel wasn't broken, but we optimized it. Yeah. But we used really like weird, let's just call it like weird strategy to do so. And And it's shifted a lot of things. So, I mean, there is a place for both. And I think any entrepreneur who is listening to this still, thank you. If you're looking to really scale your business, you're looking to create a real presence, you're looking to become more of, to help more people, to impact more lives, to make more money. If you're having a tough time at it and you're feeling like you're trying everything, you're throwing it all at the wall and nothing's working, this would be a perfect time for you to pause and just feel into what the next steps are. One of the tools that I've created for entrepreneurs is a deck of Oracle cards. It's literally a deck of cards for entrepreneurs. And so that you don't have to worry about being like an intuitive psychic person and like trusting every instinctual thing you get. You can just pull a card every day and get direction. I think that's one of the easiest ways to appease your left brain because it needs something to hold on to versus just like some passing thought or like gut instinct. It needs something like, it needs something more grounded. And so, you can use cards, you can ask for a sign, you can flip a coin. Like there are simple ways that you can start to integrate, using your intuition to make life a little bit easier. The other thing, if you want to go a little bit on the woo-woo spectrum here, is that we can have sort of funny blocks. It can be money blocks. It can be, we've taken these like vows of poverty over lifetimes. We could be blocking ourselves towards creating happiness. All these things have happened on a really deep soul level, whether it started as a child with these stories that we've made up about having to work hard for money, or beyond that. But sometimes it's a matter of actually getting the deeper work done for you so that you can really move forward easily and with grace. The thing is like, you got to do the work. And even if you come to me and, we decide to work with me, if you're not doing the deeper work, like Bobby was talking about, he didn't do any of the tactical stuff. He's been doing all the mindset stuff. But if you're not willing to take that pause and to look at your brain and how it's thinking and how it's wiring and the stories that you're telling yourself and really assess those things on a deeper level, you really will have a tough time moving to that next level. It doesn't just show up. Like, the business will happen, but it won't be as easy as you want it to be. So it might take a little bit of reprogramming and slowing down and being able to, pick up the pieces a little bit one at a time.
Yeah. And I think the reason why, for me, the mindset work was more important, and I think for a lot of entrepreneurs it probably is because not all of us, but a lot of us are these type A, really analytical. So, we learn all the strategies. And, as James has said many times, it's not that there's not a difference between a webinar and a video series or a challenge launch, but there really isn't. And those are just strategies. At the end of the day, it's the other part and having the right mindset that works. And one other thing I have to say, because this came to me, you know what? The other thing I would say is different about my business over the last, say, 6 months. I'm having a hell of a lot more fun. Just in everything I do. It's just, I enjoy it. I'm bringing fun, my personality, everything full force into it. And I think that is part of what's also, made things work and put me in alignment.
Huge. And that's a great question to ask yourself. How can this be easy? How can this be fun?
Yep.
Because I don't think we're actually asking ourselves how launches can be easy and fun most of the time. We're like, all right, we have 9,000 steps. Let's do them. Right. And you're head down, you're focused, and you're just like hustling and pushing. And that's the thing. You're complicating it, but it can be easy and fun. Especially if you're just starting out, if you're looking at these 20-step things and having to create a perfect sales page, well, how can this be easy and fun? Because really, you don't need a sales page. All you need is a means for someone to give you money. That's all you need.
Okay, I got to laugh at that because I have no sales page for what I did this week.
Case in point.
Literally, I sent an email, told them my vision, said, if you want more, if you're in, send me an email back. And then I would email a link to literally a checkout page. And an ugly checkout page, didn't put an image. It's got the ugly shopping cart. It's just my basic Kartra sales or, checkout page.
Yep.
There's no email sequence that comes after it. I said, look, I'm doing this. I'm finishing it up on Thursday. I'm going to email everybody on Friday and circle back.
Exactly. See, that's how, like last year when I was in the inner circle, I felt kind of like the ugly duckling because that's how I ran my business. I was like, if you want in, raise your hand. Yep. And it was like, checkout page, there you go. And it was like, wait, I have to make a sales page? Like, what? So, and there's a time and a place for it. I'm not saying sales pages are obsolete. I'm saying if you want to make it easy and you want to make it light and fun, you don't need to overcomplicate it. All you need is a link. Bobby doesn't have anything other than a link. I've sold my course with nothing but an idea and here's what the concept is. If you want in, here's the link. Like that is it. So you just have to give yourself permission to kind of like break the rules sometimes too.
Yeah. But I think it's a broader point and it's not just launches. I think if you're not having fun in your business, and we've all heard that old adage that, if you do what you love, it's not work and all that. And I always thought I liked being a lawyer and that, hey, it wasn't bad. But when I look back, I was never having fun, whereas now I'm having fun. And again, I'm not saying that everything is fun. When I'm, spend a whole day trying to write 2 emails and just can't get them out, it's not fun. But by and large, day in and day out, I have fun. And so I think if that's not where you are in your business, you probably ought to assess, do you need to make a change? Because, I honestly like interacting with the people who are my customers, my potential customers, but also my peers who serve those same customers. And so that means basically I'm hanging out with friends all day and making money doing it. And that's a pretty good place to be.
I think so too. I was given a gift, this really cool journal, which I'm not a crazy journaler, but this journal had prompts in it. And I was not ready for that. When I opened it, I thought I was just going to free write this morning. And I opened it and it had some journal prompts. And one of the questions was, describe your dream job. And I was like, I'm doing it. Like this is my dream job. It's exactly what you said. It's like, I get to do what I love and with people who I love. And I'm making amazing friends. I'm making amazing connections. My community is thriving. People's lives are inspired. Like, best day ever. This is it. So,
yeah. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, to some people, what we've been doing for the last, 45, 50 minutes is work. To me, this was just a heck of a lot of fun.
So much fun. And honestly, so back to like letting things kind of percolate. My podcast was that exact thing, which was I was afraid of it. And it kept calling me. And I was like, no, it's going to be too much work. It's going to be too hard. I don't know what I'm doing. Who am I to have all these other people have podcasts? They have bigger audiences. Why would I do? And it was all of that until I got to the point where I feel like I had so many nudges to do it that I couldn't fight it anymore. I'm like, fine, it just has to be easy and fun. That's all. And then I found a podcast producer that literally did everything. All I had to do was press record, and then save it somewhere. And like, it's like recording my podcast has been so easy and so fun. And it was actually so easy and so fun that I recorded so much content up front that I got myself through so many more months with it. I'm like, is this my work now? Like, this is the best.
Yeah. So listen, what you need to understand is Emily has super batched. So, like, she's like, has stuff in the can for 6 months now.
It's ridiculous.
But also you did make new and noteworthy?
Yeah.
Which I thought they'd done away with that because I saw stuff on the new and noteworthy that had been out for like 3 years. But
right.
So that's good. It's a very good podcast. So people should definitely be listening to it because, again, Emily clearly knows a thing or two about this stuff and about how to be a better entrepreneur.
Thank you. And the guests are all people like Bobby, which Bobby will be booking you very soon once I have a spot open. But
so, listener, you'll be able to catch me on that podcast in December 2020.
But it's really cool because it's conversations with really successful entrepreneurs just like you. And it's their process of becoming aligned and unstoppable, which is the name of my podcast, but it's their process in their own ways. And sometimes it's almost like they're coming out and they're coming out of their spiritual closet. Like, oh my gosh, I've been using these like woo-woo things and I haven't told anybody about it. So there's some really cool stories, but I kind of want to circle back to what you said about getting your best ideas in church. Can I do that for a second?
Yeah.
Do I have permission?
Yes, of course.
I wrote that down because I thought that was really special. Sometimes people ask me if I believe in God, which is, I mean, I find it to be a funny question. I absolutely believe in God. But I find that what you said is exactly what I hope for everybody, which is that you can find a place where you can connect. And it doesn't matter if you call it God, you call it source, you have your quiet time, the universe, I don't care what you call it, but that you have that space to just connect and just to sit. Because when you're sitting in church and you're receiving, what you're doing is you're putting all the other stuff, all the other chatter, putting the monkey back down in the box, like all of that so that you can just be present. And that's why the best business ideas show up to you, because you're sitting in a place where you're open energetically, your body is relaxed, and you're just there to be there. You're just there. And that's, again, some people get tripped up with the work that I do, but they're like, I don't have time to meditate or whatever you call it. If you're running, if you're in the garden, if you are cooking, if you're on a walk in nature, like all of that, I count it as meditation. I count it as being present. So any time in your life that you are fully present, and I'm not talking about sitting in traffic being really angry. I'm talking about like places where you can just decompress. That is where some of the most magical things can happen. And I don't know where you live geographically, but if you have somewhere that you can go to be in nature, whether it's the woods, whether it's the beach, I don't care, being able to be in nature can be so inspiring for your system. But if you're like Bobby and you have a place, if you have a place of worship that you go to, that's like, it's your place. Like, yes, that's part of your business model. You must go. You must do that.
All the priests, pastors, and preachers of the world are now, clapping you on, Emily.
Oh, goody.
You're telling people for your own business, you got to go to church.
You do. It's so good for you. I mean, like I said, I have clients who are very religious. I have a client who's actually a pastor, but it's like finding that place where you can just be open and let things come in. Because also, when you're open spiritually, when you're relaxed and you're open spiritually, it's like a way for God to start talking to you. It's a way for your angels to start giving you support. It's a way for you to unload your burden and your worries and your overthinking. I know for me, when I get caught in like a heavy place, and I was just telling Bobby before we got on, last week he had to cancel, but my kids were like sick with the plague. So I had to cancel all my work. So it all kind of worked out. But in that space where you think you want to be doing and you're like, I'm kind of frustrated because I can't be doing the thing I want to be doing. You also have to surrender to that. And that's a great way to connect with God, is like, God, and I was praying a lot last week. I was like, God, please, like, take these thoughts, take this worry, take our sickness, take our pain, and replace it with your love instead. Just as simple as that can make such a big difference in your day, which will make difference in your mindset, make a big difference in your work, in your relationships, in your family, your clients, like all of that stuff. And we no longer become a victim to our circumstances. We can just be present. And again, coming back to the present moment, being here just to receive.
Yeah. And I think it's, and I knew something about the reason why I was having those ideas was because I was there and not turning my brain off, but intentionally not thinking about work. And so I think that makes a huge, huge difference.
It totally does. And also the fact that like church usually has pretty good juju, like the energy being there. It's usually a really wonderful vibration, and it really can stoke your own energy to come to a higher vibration. So if you know of any places that you feel really good around, those are probably good places to just let go and go to frequently.
Yep. Okay. Well, I think we got to wrap it up, Emily, but this has been fantastic. Where can my listeners find you other than your podcast, The Aligned and Unstoppable podcast?
That's the one.
Where do they find you?
They can find me over on Instagram. They can come to my website, emilyarons.com. Yeah, I hang out on Instagram the most. And actually, I would love to hear from your listeners and really connect with your listeners. If they were listening and, they can tag me in a screenshot or whatever kind of, insights that they got from this episode. I would love to hear from them for sure.
Yeah, definitely do that. Let her know. I mean, again, I got insights sitting here, that are just, it's crazy. And the alignment of this and the timing and everything aligning the way it did and us delaying it a week, everything just seems kismet here. So
totally
fantastic. So definitely listeners, go and find Emily, tag her, tell her what you thought, but also, check out her podcast because it's all this goodness all the time. So, and she has meditations and things like that to help you with the work as well. So definitely check it out.
Thank you.
Emily, thank you. This has been fantastic.
Thanks so much, Bobby. It's been a blast.
Okay, listeners, that's it for this episode of the Online Genius Podcast. I will be back again next week with another episode for you. Until then, go out, build your business, but like Emily said, make it easy. And I'm going to add, make it fun. So that's it for this week. Talk to you later.
Thanks for listening to the Online Genius Podcast. Make sure to tune in next week for more great tips, tricks, and strategies to help you build and protect your online genius.